Hello, hello, welcome. Howdy. Greetings, Earthlings. Saludos, amigo. And thank you for coming. This is what we call the remnant of a remnant, you know. But, like we've been saying all along, he who sows sparingly will reap. He who sows abundantly will reap abundantly. So again, read those books and make it your routine. Every year, pick 4 books. And you can read more. I'm like on my 15th book this year, and I just picked up another one called Thou Shalt Prosper by a rabbi. And he's teaching, basically financial principles from the Torah. So you're looking at 3,000 years of, guiding principles, a lot of which we are very familiar with. I actually wanted to share with you a little bit from this because it's kind of what we've been talking about as well. So one, he talks about cherishing books because that's a Jewish tradition, but it's one of those that I've kind of adopted myself. Jewish tradition teaches that after you've done new things consistently for a while, you begin to feel yourself becoming a different person. One example that probably everyone has experienced is contrasting how you feel at the beginning of an exercise regimen with how you feel once you've been at it for a few months. What was an almost unendurable daily burden gradually stopped being painful and finally became an essential part of having a good day. Now it feels weird not to do it. Again, it's like putting on your seatbelt. You had to be reminded a lot for a while. And now, if you're just backing the car out of the driveway and moving at 10 feet, you feel weird if you don't have your seatbelt on. At least that's me, So, I'm just sharing a little bit from my newest book that I'm reading. And it might end up, on one of the lists there. So, basically, you became a different person. One consequence of becoming a different person is that you will become less vulnerable to trends and fads. Confident in what you know and who you have become, you will successfully avoid the demoralizing chatter of the envious, which we talked about too. When it comes to money, when you're comfortable in your own style, as dorky as it may be, this was my t-shirt from when I went to a Scandinavian summer dance camp. Okay? Dork alert, dork alert. But you know what? As they say, everyone is normal until you really get to know them. And so we've all got that dorkiness. Embrace it. Be comfortable in your own skin. Do what you love. Love what you do. Right? So you will be able to smile politely when people challenge you on things, but without engaging, without getting angry. You say, "Well, they don't understand." They don't understand the sheer joy of Scandinavian folk dancing or of listening to it. I'm Scandinavian. Yes, Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. So in this, he talks about acquiring more money will require that you learn not only new facts, but also new intuitions and new ways of responding to situations. Do I need that or do I just want it? Is it in the budget? Is it in our plan? Is this good for me? Is this good for my family? We start asking, we have different intuitions. I don't envy the guy in that really cool car at the stoplight next to me because my car is paid off and it's reliable. He's probably leasing, To me, having a paid off car is the new status symbol, not the BMW or Mercedes. Having no debt, having a paid off home, whoa, that's the goal, Fully funding my retirement plan. Ooh, there's my status symbol right there. So if you really grew, then you really changed. Becoming a different person is not nearly as formidable as it sounds. And he talks about the why. Okay? But to me, and he gives a good example about how this just kind of reinforces. So suppose you are interested in becoming proficient in self-defense. You might start by reading several excellent books, big fan books, on martial arts. Will you now be ready to fearlessly tread the mean streets of Denver 16th Street Mall after dark? No, because you can't, you've got to apply it. You've got to practice it. It's got to become second nature to you. Budgeting gets really easy after a year or two, but it's hard. Initially, there's some bumps along the way. But it's a spending plan. See, a lot, and we've talked about this, how diet and budget, they have these really wrong connotations in our minds because we think it means no. And really what it says is no to these little things, but yes to the big things, And so it's our plan. But it takes a while to get on the same page with that budget or that diet, and things like that. So the only way to improve your confidence on the streets in a meaningful way is to attend classes regularly and practice the moves until they become second nature to you, preferably with a padded mat down there. That way, when attacked, your body will automatically respond in mere milliseconds. You will react instantly, powerfully, and effectively because you bypass the slow logic centers of your brain. If you've ever talked to anyone or watched any of the film of like a shot down pilot, crash in the ocean, the gentleman, I can't remember his Scott something, Scott Green, something like that. No, not Scully. But he's a good example as well. This was a pilot who was shot down in like 96 or so in the Kosovo-Bosnia conflict. And the training kicks in. They don't have to think. They know what to do because they practice. And they never thought they would need it. It's like life insurance. You hope you never need it. But all those hours, all that training kicks in. They know how to cut the parachute in the water. They know how to swim free and not get tangled into, all these things kick in because they've been practicing. And that's what our daily habits, that's what the daily budget or the monthly budget, that's what all that does. And I thought this is a good segue into what we've been talking about. Today, we're going to talk about our strategies for relationships. And hopefully we have some time to talk about some synergies. I've written down a few, and I'm really excited, eager to hear yours, because I don't have all the good ideas. In fact, most of mine I've read or learned from others. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that. I was talking, remind me of your first name again. Aaron. Because he missed the first class, so I was kind of reminding him, or telling him about what we talked about that first week, about kind of my journey to really digging in deep in these three areas of health, wealth, and relationships. My father's bad health at the time in retirement, where he didn't have the wealth, he didn't have the health, and he didn't have the relationships. Thankfully, God is so good and merciful that he helped repair some of my dad's relationships with his children and grandchildren and daughters-in-law and things like that, that really, he was surrounded by family when he died. But his retirement was cold and dark, versus the golden years of what it could have been, because of choices he made for years and decades. And so we're talking about that. So I just wanted to kind of remind everyone who you might miss some of kind of what this was about. So the core scripture, John 10:10, the thief comes to kill and destroy, but I came to give you life to the full. And we can see the thief's work out there abundantly. The wide road for our health is bad health across America. Where you have obesity, you have cancer, you have all these chronic diseases. You've got this gross inflammation from our diet, which was recommended by the USDA. Take the fat out. You don't want to eat fat. Okay, what do we put in there? Sugar, starch, all that stuff. Yay! It tastes good. High fructose corn syrup. Yeah. Which tells our body you're never full. Keep going. So life to the full, thinking about what does life to the full look like with my health? What does it look like with my money and wealth? And what's it look like with relationships? Aaron and I were talking about, there's a woman who turned 90 the other day who skydived. There's a woman who summited Everest a couple of years ago who was like late 70s. She was like 78. And she summited Everest. That's to me what life to the full looks like as you get older for your health. And wealth to me is having more than enough for your needs, meaning your unplanned needs, car breaking down, layoff, medical bills, having more than enough for your needs, retirement. Someday you have to live on that for 15, 30 years maybe. And the needs of people around you. you know? And relationships, life to the full, where you don't cringe when you see family, you know? You don't have to say, you know, you exhaust me, you know, I have to put up a boundary here. I can only talk to you for 10 minutes and then I have to stop because this is so toxic, you know? But where your relationships are actually healthy, you know, they help you become a better person, and they don't make you feel like you want to crawl into a, you know, fetal position and suck your thumb, you know. So that's kind of our why, for why we want to do all the hard work of making those changes. And the why is that big thing. You know, if you're trying to lose weight, so, you know, for that high school reunion or for beach season, it's not a big enough why. You're going to rebound right afterwards, you know, yo-yo dieting, all that stuff. You know, so you have to have that big why, which ultimately comes down to loving yourself. You know, this is what I want, life to the full, in these areas, and this is what I'm going to remember. This is how I love me, you know, and my family. So that's a big one. And I was actually thinking about this on Sunday. Did you guys catch the lesson on Sunday with Frank and Erica? And they were sharing it. It was very well done. It was very powerful, and hopefully life-changing for a lot of people. One of the scriptures they had at the beginning was, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And I was remembering what we talked about last week. Love one another as I have loved you. How has God loved us and loves us? With all his heart, all his mind, all his strength, all his soul. That's how we're supposed to love ourselves. That's how we should love each other. It's hard, but I think knowing how God loves us helps us to love ourselves better. And that's what we talked a lot about last week. So we remember that wide road. Remember what is the default option. If we don't do anything, where are we going to end up? Without any money, without any cushion, with a lot of financial stress, like my poor dad. I use that poor dad, you know, in both ways. Relationships will not be nurturing, will not be strong. They'll be hit and miss. And when friends die, it'll be hard to make new friends, you know, because we haven't cultivated that habit, you know, of trusting and being vulnerable and all those things, of growing in intimacy, as Bill's been reading about. And same with health. So we remember that when we make different choices, we get different results. Remember that we learn to say no to those little things or to wrong things like sugary snacks and stuff. So we can say yes to the positive and the healthy and the big things. Again, like our dreams of life to the full. We remember those timeless principles of compounding, not just with money, you know, because we remember that credit cards, consumer debt compounds against us. But hopefully our savings, our investments will compound for us. And same thing with our habits, our lifestyle habits with health and spending and things like that. Remember that habits only take about 3 to 4 weeks to grow and become little baby habits. They're still weak, but they get stronger as time goes by. So we can actually create up to 12 new habits a year pretty conservatively, you know? And imagine that if you had 3 new habits with your health habits, and 3 new habits for wealth, and 3 new habits for your relationship, and 3 new habits for your spiritual walk. A year. Imagine all that compounding in just in 5 years. What does that look like? If you do that every year, if you did just 1 year, it'd be powerful. But if you're able to do that every year, it's huge. You would become a different person, different family. Our habits and our routines make our choices easier, make them automatic. Again, it's like boundaries. You know, if you have trouble with certain shows or internet tempting you, then you have boundaries, you have filters, I use a kitchen timer. It reminds me to turn it off. You know, hey, it's been an hour. You don't need to watch anymore. You know, it's not good for you. Get up and move. You got lots of stuff around the house to do. Get after it. And we can create those new habits and routines and get different results. And mainly, we can create those new habits and those routines with increased focus. That's why we talk about those focus cards. And again, you can use whatever helps you to focus. You know, Dave Ramsey has that one chart that write all your debts down, and you cross them off, and the other side you can write down your savings rate, and you can watch that grow. I have an amortization schedule for my home. I was going to say house, and it came out home, but I meant to say it's kind of both. It is a house, and it's my home. But it helps me see where I'm at on paying that off. You know, the worst is when, you know, you're trying to say hello to someone or just thank you, and you want to say, you're welcome and no problem, and what comes out is, your problem, you know. So at least I didn't stumble that bad. But again, we want to increase that focus because we live in that ADD world. It just keeps us distracted, constantly reacting to things. And by the way, and don't take any offense to this, all of us need to go on a diet, a low information diet. If it bleeds, it leads. Anything about politics is toxic, especially these days. And what does that bad news and that constant drumbeat of bad news and toxicity do to your spirit? What does it do to your joy and your confidence and your hope? It kills it. It stomps on it like gum that gets their poo or something, you know? It just stomps on it, you know? And so restrict what you watch, restrict how long you read the news, whatever you do. You know, maybe 5 minutes a day just so you're aware of what's going on. But you don't really want to read the comment section. You don't want to post in the comment section because you will be called some names by people who must be 10 feet tall because they're tough. I mean, they're some big talking people on those sides. But, you know, anyway, but you want to be happy. You want a life full of joy and purpose. So you want to avoid that stuff. You want to give yourself a low information diet. I think I shared this, where I had one of those insights one time where somebody got mad at me in traffic, and it was just a weird thing because I changed lanes like a block or two ahead of them, and he got behind me and then just tailgated me and leaned on the horn and was flipping me off. And I had one of those, sometimes I'll get mad back, but this time, or I'll get amused and I'll, you know, what a jerk, what an idiot. This time, I just had kind of compassion for the person. I thought, this guy's having a temper tantrum. He doesn't realize he's acting like a 3-year-old who wants some gum or something, you know, and he's being told no in the supermarket, you know. He's having a temper tantrum because I'm in front of him and he didn't want me to be in front of him for some bizarre reason. Now I'm his enemy. I'm his mortal enemy because I'm in front of him, you know. And it was just, wow, you know. And how often do I have temper tantrums where I buy things I'm not ready to buy, or I eat things I shouldn't buy, or, you know, I say things I shouldn't say because I'm just, you know, being a toddler. You know, I want it, you know. And so it's one of those little epiphanies that we all have to deal with that 2-year-old toddler inside of us. So again, we use these focus cards, but use whatever works for you. Try different things. We're going to develop some for our relationships tonight, and then hopefully we can come up with some great synergies. Again, don't try and do more than one new habit a month because you'll be, you know, a house divided against itself kind of stand. Your purpose, your energy will be reduced. What was the word? Yeah. So again, but to develop a new habit, you have to have information. So again, I want you to read those books. I want you to look at those core scriptures. I want you to look at TED Talks. You know, instead of watching a TV show, watch a TED Talk, you know, on communication or whatever. And I'm going to send you some links on a lot of those. Again, one book a quarter I think is a great idea. I love reading because I can underline. I like books. Some of you like libraries. The only problem with that is you can't write in their books, so you need a notepad. I don't have that kind of discipline, but if you do, great. Audiobooks are great too, but it's really, I usually listen to audiobooks when I'm in my car. Not good to write notes right then. So again, figure out what works for you. And if that works, great. If, you know, give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, then you try something else. And again, most of the authors I recommend, they have YouTube videos. So if you're not a reader, if that comes hard to you, we're talking 4 books a year, but again, if you're not used to that, it's hard. Sometimes things are just hard because we're out of practice, or it reminds us of school or something like that. So watch those authors on YouTube. David Bach, the Automatic Millionaire, Dave Ramsey, all these guys, Tom Stanley, the Millionaire Next Door. There's so many of them on there. Can't even think of different ones there. The other thing I don't think we mentioned, but find people who are more successful than you are in any of these areas and get together with them. Once a month, once a quarter, kind of talk to them. If you were me, what would you do? What has worked for you and what hasn't worked for you? For example, if you know anyone who's 60s, older, and you ask them, what would you do differently with money? You're going to be, I would have started saving a lot sooner. I would have figured out how to spend less. I would have figured out how to live within my means. I would have taken better care of myself. I would have told people I loved them more. There's so much deep, profound advice that you can get from them. And most of us never even think to ask. My grandma died, she was 103. I never asked her a single question about her life. She was born in 1884. She died when I was 19. She was around before planes, trains, automobiles, Steve Martin, space on man on the moon, anything. And I never really asked her anything. I was more concerned with what's on TV tonight, So that's kind of how we all can be. But get a mentor or just make a habit of, when you see someone who's older than you, ask them some good questions. Hey, a lot of times newlyweds will ask people for marriage advice. They'll be coming around, hey, we just got married. Yeah, what would you do? What works for you? They're asking advice, like a date night and praying together and things like that. But we get out of that habit pretty quickly, A few years ago, Jessica and I were part of a new marriage group, in the church. We were the only ones who were holding hands, newlyweds, within 5-6 months or so. So that is kind of what happens there. So I had a note here. I want to make sure. Oh, yeah. So do you guys remember that movie? I think it was called As Good as It Gets. Do you remember the line? The line, Jack Nicholson, Mr. Eyebrows. You make me want to be a better man. That was the line. Oh. Yeah, that was the line, right? God is the one who makes us want to be better. And God helps us to become a better man, a better woman, a better husband, a better friend. Bill, the book you're reading, 7 Levels of Intimacy. Our friends help us to become better. Did you finish the book yet? Okay.
Still working.
All right. But it's good, right?
It's good.
All right. Okay, good. All right. So anyway, I thought that was a neat idea there. You make me want to be a better man. And ultimately that's God. Philippians 4:13, right? He gives it's His power that works in us to want what He wants. I'm going to totally butcher that one. If someone has a Bible, please look that one up. Philippians, is it 4:13? Can I look at that? Because now I feel bad.
No, you don't.
Oh, I'm in concordance already. Popcorn, right? Okay. It's not that one. 2:13, for it is God who works in you both to will and to do for His good pleasure. To want what He wants and to do what He wants, which is ultimately all for our highest good. So without further ado, actually, maybe with some further ado, is there any questions or things you want to talk about before we come up with some relationship strategies, some focus cards for our relationships? Okay. Any books you're reading that you want to share? What you're learning? Okay, we got a lot of hands coming up. Let me think. Who should I call on first? Okay. What's that?
Compared to what other subjects we did, there's a lot less responses for this subject.
It's all is well. All is well. Okay.
We're talking about TED Talks and authors and stuff. Somebody that I really, really appreciate is Brene Brown.
Renee Brown?
Brene, B-R-E-N-E.
Okay.
It's an accent over the last E, and her last name is Brown. She's a social psychologist or a sociologist, but she's done a lot of work on vulnerability, and it's really applicable to relationships in terms of, the importance of being vulnerable. Another book that she's written is called, one of her books is The Gifts of Imperfection, but the other one is called Daring Greatly, and she quotes that, I think it's a Teddy Roosevelt quote that I think you might have shared too, about the person who gets in the ring and fights and stuff like that, that in the end it's about the one who, who's willing to dare greatly. And so anyway, but she's really good. She's got some TED Talks out there, and just is really very encouraging.
Thank you. Brene Brown. Brene. Right. I was trying to say that. Brene. Yeah. Okay. And of course, the key to relationships is being vulnerable. And again, like we talked about that paradigm, which I think they illustrate greatly in 7 Levels of Intimacy, is we want to be loved for who we really are, but we're afraid that we won't be, so we don't share who we really are. So, losing strategy. Okay, so what are some things we can do to have stronger, healthier relationships?
Are you asking?
Yes. So we're going to build some focus cards right now.
You can build focus cards.
We're going to do that right now. So first we're going to do what we're doing. That reminds me of a line from Bugs Bunny. He's dancing with the vulture. I don't know, Beaky Buzzard. Do you guys know who that is? I'm bringing home a baby bump. Yeah. So he's dancing with him, and throws him off. Where they're chasing each other. He's trying to catch him. All of a sudden they're dancing. And the buzzer says, "No." Bug says, "Why don't we do this more often?" And the buzzer says, "You mean just what we're doing?" So focus cards, just what we're doing. Thank you, Tom. Okay, Thomas. So I'm an abstract guy. I go here and there. So helping our relationships to be stronger. So it's got to have some vulnerability in there. So some planned vulnerability. What else?
Would you say planned?
Yeah.
Planned vulnerability.
I think planned because otherwise, we can be vulnerable at the wrong time or with the wrong people. Have you ever done that where you're vulnerable to the wrong person or the wrong time? Yep. And they rebuke you or something? Or they're indifferent? I remember, I'll just give general scenario. Was just at a funeral. Was visiting a church. After service, the person goes, "Oh, so I haven't seen you guys before. You've been here before. This is our movement, our fellowship of churches." "Yeah, we're in town. We were just here for a funeral." "Oh, well, let me tell you about me."
Oh, wow.
And all happy, and wasn't that a great service? And it's like, our hearts are broken, and you don't care. Just go away, and that's exactly how it felt, So we can be vulnerable to someone, so that's why I say planned vulnerability. The other thing, were you here last week? Okay, you remember the bug report? The little video where, from that.
No, that was in the beginning.
No, it was toward the end. But the bug report is basically a clip from the Big Bang Theory, where a dating couple, and he says, "Hey, I have a bug report for you. It's color coded. Isn't that helpful?" And it's, wow, there's a lot on here, and so planned vulnerability is where you're vulnerable about what hurt you. Hey, when you do this, that hurt me, or it hurts me, or let's talk about that bump, or let's talk about this. I didn't say anything at the time, we were out or whatever, but I need to work through that. So that's why I say planned, because it's scheduled. And your heart's kind of come ready, knowing that, hey, I might be told I did something here, and I need to be humble, and I need to be thankful, because again, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better friend. So I say planned vulnerability. Maybe you can use whatever words you like. I'll send these out. They'll be in Word documents, so you can edit them all you like. So what else to really help those relationships? Bill?
I think one of the things I learned in 7 Levels of Intimacy, Matthew Kelly was saying, first you have to know the 7 levels helps you to have some clue as to how deep you are getting to something. And basically, part of it is spending time with somebody and going to the next level. Okay, the first 3 levels are just opinions and facts and cliches. So when you start getting into here's where I've failed. Here's some of my failures. Then you're opening yourself up to a lot of criticism. But if you're trying to deepen your relationship, then you have to realize, okay, now I'm making time in my schedule to have time with this person so that I can get deeper. I can ask them the questions and I can respond with my own. Here's what I want to be. Here's what I want this relationship to be. That kind of stuff. It's like knowing where you're headed. So I guess the pinnacle was you're actually able to share your faults and your disasters with people. Almost no one does that, he says, unless you've got someone really, really that you trust with yourself, is what he's saying. You're sharing yourself. So spending time knowing what level you want to be in. Where do you want to go in this relationship? Spend the time and then go to the next level, basically.
So Bill recommends that book, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah. So a lot of what we talked about with those scriptures last week, God has so much to say about our relationships. We call them the one another verses. But all of those things will strengthen our relationships. They'll bring us closer. Encouraging one another, spurring one another on. These are things that you're sharing. Bearing with each other. Forgiving each other. Tony?
I would say asking questions that show you care, and then listening like you do helps deepen relationships.
So be interested, care, ask questions, and really listen. How can you tell someone listen? Well, you tell them about something, the next time you see them, they kind of ask you about that. They actually remembered.
Even add on to that too, would be ask questions about what they're concerned about. Like today, I was at the gym and there was a police officer I knew that worked out there. So I focused on asking him about, police officer deaths and different things, and caring about what his responses were, and asking him about his and his fellow officers' opinions, and not just trying to get, what does society think, but what do these guys really feel as they're going about their day, and listening to all these crazy stories. So I'll remember that, I'm sure. I think he will too.
I think so. I wonder how many people ask him. They just want to know him so he can get them off of tickets, maybe, Did I see another hand? I thought I did. Okay. Crystal?
Showing interest in their interest, even if it's not your
So showing interest in their interests. We talked about that a little bit. His needs, her needs really covers that, where he's really into this, she's not, so they go and do different things 3 times a week or 3 nights a week. Instead of, well, no, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to be your big cheerleader. I'm going to learn something about that so I can actually have an intelligent discussion about it, and vice versa. So we're still together, and we're still close together, and I'm cheering you on, and your victories are my victories, and vice versa. So showing interest in their interests, I like it.
I think serving them.
The way that they'd like to be served.
Sure.
I think that's
Breakfast in bed. Love them as you would be loved. Don't seek to be understood, seek to understand.
I made you a chocolate cake. Yeah, but I'm allergic to chocolate, and I like orange. But I felt like making chocolate.
But I love chocolate. Oh, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Guess what I got you for Christmas? A new fishing rod.
But if you don't want it,
Yeah. We'll share. Yeah.
It's got my name on it anyway.
Yeah. So serve them, right? And a lot of, we're joking about this, but like the 5 love languages, it really, again, it goes back to those one another verses, but it does involve some understanding. And again, that kind of heart-to-heart sharing, where if service is their love language, but you keep bringing them flowers and gifts, cards, it's like, thanks, but I'd really love it if you'd pick up your clothes once in a while and hit wash on the dishwasher, or something like that. So it kind of goes to that, and then once you have had that conversation, maybe a few times. Again, we're not all quick studies. Sometimes we have to be reminded that when you do this, it bugs me, and we're gentle when we say those things. But then we do those things. We do serve each other. We do encourage one another in the ways that we need to be served and loved. These are some really good things. Anything else?
I think core to all of those is, true humility and compassion. True from your heart. If you really felt like this person is greater than you and you want to really understand them, then you would do all these things, right? That's kind of the key feeling.
They are a gift from God. Be grateful. And of course, when you're grateful, it's a lot easier to be humble toward people, isn't it? Sometimes we feel like we're the gift from God to them. Is that just me? Okay. Yeah.
Along those same lines, be able to make them feel safe so they can open up or ask for help and know that you'll be available and you won't be judging them.
So be a safe place for their heart. Be gentle. Basically, love them as God loves us. Be gentle. Be patient.
This applies to all relationships, especially marriage. That's where I heard it in the context of marriage was for me to look at my husband as that's God's son, and for me to treat him as such. But I think in all of your relationships, you can treat all of your girlfriends like that's God's daughter, and I want to help her to see heaven, or to have that heart where this is truly God loves them as much as I could ever love them and more, and I should show them that in my character.
That is good. I need to treat them as God's child. Crystal?
Not feeling like you have to address every fault, but being willing to overlook some faults so that the relationship doesn't get too critical.
That kind of goes with bearing with one another, doesn't it? And forgiving and being patient. Yeah. Be willing to overlook.
Until the sink is full.
That's right, exactly.
Until what?
Well, I think that goes back to being humble as well, because I want people to understand that I'm a work in progress, and I'm doing my part, and God's doing His part. He's helping to change my heart and to give me the energy and the strength and the wisdom to make better decisions, make different decisions. And she's a work in progress too. And don't be so quick to judge, right? Mercy triumphs over judgment.
But he brought up a good point too, and that is not to overlook everything where the sink is full and then you overflow, but just address things calmly, but just not every single thing.
Don't be a picnicker, huh? So I think, and we've probably all heard this before, is you want to be their biggest cheerleader, not their biggest critic, What else?
I got something probably not to do. If you ever watch The Simpsons, Homer goes out and buys a bowling ball for Marge on her birthday. It's got his name on it, so probably something not to do.
Let me think. What's that?
Every Simpsons episode is something you shouldn't do.
Well, pretty much if Homer Simpson does it, then you should not do it. Spider Pig, Spider Pig. Yeah. Does he fly? No, he's just a pig. Okay. But thanks, that was a very good insight. More than I expected. No, so,
I don't know how to explain it, but it's like keeping the relationship fresh. Like if you initiate maybe an idea or ask that person, maybe what they like to do, or those kinds of things where it does go to the interest of others. But I think sometimes relationships, whether they're husband and wife or even friends, somebody, what are you going to do? And you just, it doesn't. It's not fresh even in the conversation. Do you know what I mean? So I think that to me, just keep it fresh, or your relationship fresh, so that each day is a new day. Then that's the way you should kind of look at each day with your relationships. Is that
a new beginning?
Yeah. What can I learn? What can I share? What can I give?
I think that's a really good gut check too on how interesting are we being. If we come home and we talk about the same things, I'm always telling you about the same things at work. You kind of know them by heart, and here's number 3. Okay, and here comes the boss. Okay, yeah, got it. Oh, that's poor you. Yeah, that must have been hard.
So what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, that's the question.
Tell them you've heard it many times before.
Let's pray about that. What's that? Yeah, what could you do differently at work? What new habits could you have at work? What I wrote down for what you said about keeping it refreshed, do new things together. Have an adventure. When you're learning together, and you mentioned that, and you're doing things together, you've got new things to talk about. One of the neat things I liked about his needs, her needs, is at the end of that, he's got like a list of 300 or 400 activities that you can try. Basically, what he recommends is you go through it and you write down like -5, I'd hate to do that, or +5 and 0, I have 0 interest. You rank each of these things, and your partner ranks each of them. And you say, okay, well, I think we have some common interest in learning. We don't know how to do these things, but I'd be interested in it. Like racquetball, I'm the highest. Jessica's like, a little bit. I'd want to learn more because you love it. Kayaking the same. Skiing, she's terrified of it. Salute. But those are, and again, infinity. So you can go through those. You can try new things. And again, that keeps it interesting.
What book was that?
His needs, her needs. Yeah. So, but again, you can just look at the end of it. But yeah, it's pretty great. The ideas anyway. And some of them are pretty interesting. Like going to the range.
I think that's a good idea, because I've talked to my sister, she's not a disciple, but she's slowly approaching the empty nester stage. And
Who is this guy?
yeah, well, they have different interests, and she's kind of scared about that because there's not much that they really like to do together, and so, it's really hard. I think that book would probably be good. At least it would give her a practical, even if she doesn't have, they don't understand the heart behind it or anything. I think it would, they could explore things together. So that's a good book to even share with others.
I have a copy at work. I have a lending library at work for all of these areas: health, wealth, and relationships. So I can bring it in on Sunday or something like that.
But we can't write into that, right?
Oh, it's a lending library. You can keep it. Yeah.
We'll look and see if we have it first.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's very valuable. About keeping the conversation fresh. Keeping things fresh, doing things together. Watch Lord of the Rings together. It's the best movie out there.
So, just in terms of thinking in terms of synergy, right? So, like, I think I mentioned this before, like, for example, D-Times, instead of going to Starbucks and buying, coffee, that we're meeting up, we're going for a walk together, we're playing together, or, we're doing an activity together. But, just so you're staying on your budget, you're exercising, you're building your relationship, and you're working on your spiritual growth together. So, just looking for ways to incorporate all of those things in each, or, in some of your encounters and your relationships.
So look for ways to grow together. Very good. This is going to be a very long one. So again, most of them actually are, and that's fine. You can edit it and you can add and delete. And again, what you want to do is make this your own. Let me just read some of this back to you, okay? And you'll see. There's a lot of power in here. And again, we don't even have a lot of scriptures in here. We have serve one another. We have encourage one another. But we can add a lot of scriptures here. Love one another deeply from the heart. Love as God loves you, So planned vulnerability, spend quality time together, hang out together. So hang out together is what Bill was talking about, where you don't have any agenda. We don't have to go do this, this, and this. What do you want to do? Let's just go over here and then go for a walk and explore. We're just like kids. We're just going to hang out and we're going to do things as we think of them, Not all the time, but, some of the time. Encourage each other while it is called today. Spur one another on. Be real. And share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not talking about the movie, but that's a good idea too. Be interested. Care. Ask questions and really listen. Ask questions about what they're concerned about. How are you really doing? Have you ever been going through a hard time and you're walking to church and people are like, hey, how you doing? How you doing? And you can't even, if you try and answer, how am I really doing? Wow, yeah. I just meant for you to say fine so I could go on and say it to the next person. I didn't really care, how you're doing. So by the way, if you're ever going through that, I'm doing better than I deserve is a safe answer because it's always true. And it sounds really positive, but, you can be having the worst time of your life. What's that?
Does it deflect at all?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
At work, people say, oh, no, you deserve better. I was like, well, actually, no, because I was a horrible young man, and I know what I deserve. I'm lucky to be alive, let alone all the blessings I have. Show interest in their interest. Serve them. Be humble in your heart towards them. Remember, they are a gift from God. Be grateful for them. Be a safe place for their heart. Be gentle. Be patient. See them as God's child, and I need to help them get to heaven. I need to treat them as God's child. Be willing to overlook a few flaws. Don't be a big critic. Be a big cheerleader. And for guys, that doesn't mean you have to get pom-poms or anything like that. It goes back to encouraging, just keep the relationship fresh, do new things together, have an adventure. Every day is a new day, a new beginning. Look for ways to grow together. It's a lot of powerful stuff. And again, when you add in, Father, help me to remember he is your child, she is your daughter. When we add in, help me to be more like you, God, to love others with all my mind, heart, soul, and strength. Help me to love myself and have good boundaries. When we invite God into this, it becomes really powerful. Really powerful. Any other thoughts for relationships? Again, you can turn this into 2 or 3 of them. And you can you can have one for different people. You can focus on 1 or 2 things at a time if you want to. Learning to, we talked about love and respect, showing respect, and being a more encouraging person instead of automatically telling you everything that's wrong in my life. We know people like that. Sometimes they're family members. Sometimes they're older family members. And they wonder why no one wants to be with them. And so they complain about that too. But when you're there, they're telling you about some really graphic medical situations. It's like, wow, really? Blood in there? Okay, and they hurt and all this stuff. And it's exhausting. But maybe we're the exhausting one. I think someone said, if you take 5 people that you know, or 4 people you know, one of them's crazy. And if none of them are crazy, it's you. So it's just one of those things that maybe you're that guy. Maybe you're that guy. And again, it's okay to be the dork, I got my shirt on. It's okay to be a little dorky. But, if you're the negative one, if you're the exhausting one, that's a good heart check. God, help me to be a grateful man, to be a grateful woman. Help me to be encouraging. All of those one another verses help me to be humble towards others, considering them better than I am. That would help me to be a lot more patient with those other drivers, if I consider them better than me, Nancy?
That was something else too you mentioned. I think praying for one another.
Well, I think praying for them, but with them, especially if they're in the church. Obviously, my mom doesn't really want to pray with me over the phone. She now will say, I love you back to me when I say it. She just doesn't feel comfortable with that, But it's taken 20 years for her to get to where she'll say, I love you too, But especially if they're a Christian, if they're in the church, pray with them daily. As much as you can. Praying for them and with them. That's great.
As far as other drivers are concerned, something that helps me is, oh yeah, I've done that too. Ooh.
On accident, right?
No, well, the best rebuke I ever got was in, I slowed down too fast and the guy had to go around me. And then he just put his hand out and, don't do that. I was like, okay, well, I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
Just one finger?
Just one finger, this one. Don't do that. Your mother told you not to do that. I was really sure. I'm in San Diego.
Well, that's actually just, it's a very good perspective to have. The Bible tells us not to judge others or we'll be judged, The book I recommend, Forgive to Live, it talks about one of the strategies to help you forgive is to remember that most people don't deliberately hurt you. They didn't set out to hurt you. It wasn't their intention, and I've done dumb things too. I've done mean, hurtful things too, I've been a bad driver,
Yeah, today.
You saw? Okay, so I think we have a lot of good stuff there. Let's talk about some synergies. We're just a little bit after 8. Synergies, things that we can do, habits that will help us grow in at least 2 of these areas of health, wealth, and relationships. And you get a gold star if you get one for all 3.
And that's already good, it's first one.
Pray works for all 3.
There you go.
If I understand your question.
Well, yes. Well, I want you to pray about all of the habits you're trying to, and the why as well.
One thing that I have to remember is to invite somebody else along when I'm going to do something maybe by myself. I love to go to movies and different things like that. And a lot of times I like to go by myself because I don't want commentary from somebody else. But
Then don't invite me. Look what he did. I can't believe he did. Don't go in there.
Billy, don't be here.
I can't believe she went in there. She don't listen to me. No.
Doesn't he look like something? But, and that could be all kinds of things, whether you're going to get something to eat, whether you're going on her walk, I mean, whatever. But just remembering, invite people, somebody else along.
I like it. I like it. And that one, it can be health. It can be, just,
Right, it could be a combination of all those things.
yeah.
What if nobody will go? Are you not going to do it?
No, I'm going to go by myself.
He's with Jesus.
You know he's
Jesus comes with me.
he's going to see Secret Life of Pets if no one goes with him.
No, Suicide's not ready. Actually, yeah, run forward. Doing that after.
What other synergies? Okay, here's a few I wrote down, and you guys chime in. Okay, go ahead.
When you're talking about relationships, I think it really helps to get somebody who knows more than you do in wealth or health, and that
Okay, so
deepen the relationships of people who you believe are further along or have things to teach you. So deepen those relationships.
So you'll grow in relationship plus one of the areas.
Some of the areas that health or wealth.
Or relationships. Yeah. Good one. Good one.
I think setting goals with all of them, so you have a direction and a plan to set out after, so that it's easy to get aimless in all 3 of these areas.
Well, I think to make that synergistic, I would add share your goals with someone. So you have something that you're talking with them about them, and they may then share their goals with you, and then you're kind of, so when you see them, again, it goes back to be interested in what they're interested, asking them what they're interested in. So now you see them as, hey, how are you doing that? How's that going? I've been praying for you. So I think set goals and share goals with someone. I think.
I think on the flip side of that, though, you could also set boundaries.
Okay.
There's a boundary at which point you have to set for yourself to quit focusing on the wealth, focus on the relationship, or set a boundary to keep yourself away from negative relationships, or set a boundary to say, okay, I need to not be so lazy today, or I need to not work out so hard to let my body recover, or whatever it is. There's boundaries on both ends of it, the good and the bad. And yeah, set a goal, reach high, but don't overwhelm yourself to where you're just going to put yourself into a negative place because you never reach it.
Right, and so that goes back to setting realistic, achievable goals.
And then that also ties back into to make it synergistic to share that. You can also share your boundaries and accountability.
Okay. So with accountability. Scott?
I think combining physical activity with spiritual time, like walking, spiritual time with your spouse, or like playing racquetball if you're going to have a cycling time with a guy. Or
Racquetball is a great idea, by the way. Spiritual man right here.
That's right.
if you like white shorts, you know. So combining exercise with spiritual time, Nancy talked about that as well, you know. You can have a D time, let's go for a walk first and then have a prayer walk, you know. Doesn't mean we have to go to Panera or Starbucks. We can actually go to the Bluffs, or we can go to the Greenway. Nancy?
Yeah, or with your spouse, you could just find new and inexpensive hobbies to do together.
Like window shopping.
Nope.
Window. You said window
Yeah, it
shopping.
never ends at the window.
Windows are very expensive, Tony.
Windows are real expensive.
Find new inexpensive activities to do together,
Yeah.
like bowling,
Bowling. Bowling is not inexpensive.
compared to golf.
But that's relative.
Or yachting.
I'm melting.
Crystal.
You mentioned this one last week, but cooking at home, you're gonna eat healthier, you're gonna save money and cook together. You're gonna, even if you don't both cook together, just having that meal together.
And that's a health and wealth one. And you can do food prep Sundays together too. So you have those snacks and some meals for the whole week plan, or lunches or something, and you did it together. Oh, involve the kids. What?
No, I said, and it's a relationship thing too.
Gold star. And again, you eat healthier when you make it yourself, and you generally spend a lot less than you would if you ate out.
As long as you don't pick the whole time you're doing it.
Are you trying to say something?
Yes.
That's the Italian way to cook.
You gotta taste it to make sure that it's good.
I thought the Italian way to cook was a little vino. Bon appetit. Yes. So one thing I wrote down is when we work together to get out of debt or to save for down payment or something that we're working on together financially, those goals, our relationships get better as well. That's something that Dave Ramsey noticed years after counseling all these people. It's like people would come up and say, our marriage is so much better now. He's like, huh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. But it happened so often, they realized it was just because people were actually sharing their heart. And they had a lot less conflict. And they were working together. You know, they were a team. It was them against all those marketers and all those people who are tempting us to spend money on other stuff. So yeah, it brings couples and families together. A grocery list is one I wrote down. Not only does it help you choose to be intentional, and we're going to have healthier items than we normally would, because if we don't buy it, it's not coming in here unless people, by the way, if people give you stuff, and this happens to me, take it to work and put it in the break area. If you need to say free, we don't have to say free at my work. It's gone in an hour. I know. I turn around and it's like, there was nobody here and it's all gone. How'd that happen? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, somebody sends you a box of brownies or something and it's like, oh, I love brownies, especially with walnuts in there. Well, I'm going to have one and I'm taking it to work because I will eat them all, you know, because I can't eat it if it's not there, you know, and so I can tell them, hey, thank you, that was awesome. I loved that. It was delicious, you know. But I don't have to tell them I didn't eat the whole thing. But then that helps me when I have a grocery list. It helps me with those impulse purchases that aren't good for my waistline. They're not good for the budget either, you know. So we talked about this one. After you eat, go for a walk together. It helps your digestion. It's good for your health. You're burning some calories, and you're talking about the day, maybe a little more interesting stuff, you know. Hey, I read this today. One blog I've been reading recently, it's very interesting. It's a early retirement blog from a guy in Longmont who retired when he was 30, I think, or 31. It's called Mr. Money Mustache. So, but again, if it's something, and he goes on all kinds of tangents, but most of them center on spending considerably less than you already are. So you can save considerably more than you are, and then you can retire earlier than the vast majority of people do or would plan to. But it's very interesting, and that's something to talk about too. Or different, Tim Ferriss has a health blog, and he has language learning hacks and things like that. Those are interesting to talk about, and how to travel and stay in really nice places for a fraction of the cost. And it's food for thought, if anything, and it's a conversation. It makes it interesting. So, but at work, you bring your own lunch, and then you go for a walk with a colleague or a friend who works nearby, and you got all three, gold star, ding, because it's a lot less expensive when you bring your own. You exercise together. That's one where you got your health and your relationship, because you're helping each other become better. It's huge. The walking deep time, the prayer walk. Were you going to say something?
Your grocery list, I think, we've been working on using coupons a lot more. And one of the things that I just thought of, and we didn't do this when our kids were smaller, but we still have smaller kids around, they always want you to bring them a treat or something back, but it may be one of those things that's like, you find a coupon for it, and yes, I can get it for you, and you have a pile of coupons, and have them go through. It might be something you guys can do as an activity together as family to build your shopping list together.
Buy five.
Yeah, hey, why not?
Right?
One five.
And make it a game for the kids.
Exactly. My wife's going to make a game for me. You want me to buy you what? Can you find a coupon for it? You can have it.
Well, and the way you can do that is you look at it at the end of you can actually track how much you saved each time. And at the end of the year, you can talk about that number. And because we saved this much, we're going to do this. We're going to go do something. It doesn't mean that you spend that much money on what but hey, because we did that, now we can do this, And so there's a celebration of that too. And then it's a lot easier to keep that going, Any others?
I was just thinking, Robin said, Debbie, sorry, Debbie, I'm like trying to remember your name. Anyway, but.
We all have those
about,
moments.
you said buy five or whatever, and I was just thinking with those kinds of deals, I thought I heard you say something about a coupon for buy five or whatever. But if you don't want five, maybe partnering with another family or somebody else that, you share the cost and split it that way. I went out to lunch recently with a coworker, and I had a coupon for buy one entree, get the other entree free, and we just split the cost of the one entree. And so,
Versus them treating you to.
well, actually, she didn't end up treating me that, but the original plan was that we were going to split the cost of the one entree.
Yeah.
And that goes for things like Sam's Club, Costco too. Sharon just did that with her cousin who's here in town. He needed stuff, but the bulk it's cheaper, but it's too much for either of us to use all of it really. So go out and do that kind of shopping together and then split.
That's great, especially if you're spending time together too.
Exactly. Social relationships and all that good stuff.
I do a menu for the week for dinners and stuff, and so I always try to get the kids input on what they want. Maybe a special meal for them for the week and that type of thing. And then I only go shopping for those items and then fill-ins, and so it goes well with that whole budgeting thing.
Unless they really like filet mignon and shrimp.
Well, and then you don't waste things either, because it's a specific meal, and that's what you eat, and then you have leftovers.
I like it. And you're doing it together, and they're involved. I was reading this, actually it was an audio book I was listening to on the blue zones, but it's the author, the blue zones are the longevity areas. And so this book is more on the happiness zones, where people are the happiest. And the part I was listening to was in Denmark. And it was just very interesting because they're asking people, why do Danes self-report consistently that they're very happy? When you see them, they're kind of dour and stoic, like most Scandinavians. And just like me, right? No, that's what you're thinking. But one of the people says, because we're consensus builders. we want everyone's input. I mean, the children have input at home on chores and everything. I mean, it's just how we do it. And so we expect the government to listen to us as well. And we expect, the government, we're paying 60% of our income in taxes, but with that, we expect responsible government that takes care of our real needs and listens to us to meet those needs, So it's kind of interesting how they're involving and listening, or at least they feel listened to, and they feel expected to listen. Sharon?
I just wanted to share the scripture. Proverbs 16:9 talks about a man's heart plans his ways, and there's a lot of plans there, but God directs the steps. So I just think about how God needs to be totally involved in all these things that we're talking about. And even our meal planning, just asking God to help us to do it, to make it happen, for us to be successful in those things.
Well, I think that's key. I think that wraps it up, actually. Invite God in here and listen to God. Be interested in what God has to say, and and keep it interesting and fresh. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will be sending out lots of stuff. And I know it's going to feel like a book, but I hope you do take time to go through it together and talk about it. And I think and remember, one book a quarter. Keep doing that. You're going to be very glad you did.